the news yesterday that it lost a $2.4 billion in the quarter. And that's just a prelude to an anticipated $8 billion in losses over the next 5 years. For a look at how the Postal Service got into this mess in the first place, I'm joined by Brian Johnson. He's the Federal Affairs Manager for the advocacy group Americans for Tax Reform, and John Steele Gordon, a financial historian and the author of An Empire of Wealth, The Epic History of American Economic Power. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for being here.
Morning. Morning.
All right, John, let me start with you. We were talking about this just the other day, so perfectly timed. This story is not good, to say the least. UPS says we could lose $8 billion over the next 5 years, probably at a minimum, looking to close as many as 700 Postal Service offices. What's going on here? What's the history?
Well, the post office is essentially technologically obsolete. The modern system of the post office was invented in the 18th century by Benjamin Franklin, and it hasn't really changed all that much. It used to be the only way to knit the country together culturally. I mean, that's why the post office has always taken a bath on delivering magazines, because they wanted to be able to deliver the same magazine over this vast country. In the 19th century, that made a lot of sense. Today, we're knitted together like crazy. I mean, we all have a post office in our pocket. And so the post office is still the same as it was.
So how much of it, John, is the technology, is just the evolution of the economy? I mean, what are the factors that are contributing to this, or have they mismanaged their business for far too long and not adapted to the changing times?
Well, being a government entity has been mismanaged almost by definition because, as I say, they're testifying before Congress. You know, a business, if it is not making money, it changes its business. But post office has to go to Congress and ask permission, and that means politics comes in. But the technology is changing. I mean, for instance, first-class mail has been declining now very rapidly for years because people are getting their bills online, they're paying their bills online. I mean, I can't remember the last time I got a proper letter from somebody. You know, I get telephone calls or emails.
Yeah, I send letters, Brian. I like to send letters, actually. I'm old school. But Brian, let me ask you, a lot of people suggest this thing isn't run right because, number one, it's one union, there's really no competition, and that perhaps what needs to happen here is we allow the mail service to be privatized in the way that we've seen it with the likes of FedEx and others. Is that the direction we're headed in?
Yeah, I sure hope so. At Americans for Tax Reform, we've been advocating that for years. I mean, the Postal Service isn't a government-owned company like Amtrak. It's actually an exclusive arm of the executive branch. So in order to inject competition in here, it actually takes an act of Congress. I mean, the Postal Service has a monopoly on letter delivery, etc. And when you have no competition, you have no room for innovation. I mean, the technology has lowered the price of flat-screen TVs because there's competition, there's room for innovation. When's the last time stamp prices went down?
Yeah, I mean, and Brian, I was looking at some of the statistics because I know they're suggesting that they'll go to 5 days from 6 days and cut off the mail delivery on Saturdays as well as closing some of the operations. But they have more, I think they have more outlets than McDonald's. Yes, McDonald's, Starbucks, and Walmart. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's about 800,000 Postal Service employees. You can run them through 2 branches of the armed service and still have leftover employees. And these are just highly unionized, highly inefficient. It's a government agency. It's not a government-owned company. It is a government agency. And, you know, this is the problem we're seeing over and over again with these type of situations.
John, just before we go, $5.4 billion due to the Retiree Health Benefit Fund, which is required by September 30th. I mean, can these cost-cutting measures do this, or is this headed in a dangerous position?
They're going to cut costs by $5.4 billion by September. Best of luck on that. Because, again, they're unionized, so they have a very hard time cutting costs. They have to negotiate every cost cut.
To be continued. Brian and John, thank you guys very much.